everyone. Welcome to English for You. I'm Mike.
And I'm Seb.
And today, Seb, we're going to be talking about a very controversial subject. The kind of thing that friends and families fight about, that couples get divorced over, and possibly even countries have fought wars about.
Oh, really? It sounds like a pretty difficult subject.
It sounds
very
like
heavy
difficult,
stuff.
Controversial, and sensitive subject. We're talking, of course, about cilantro.
Oh, cilantro?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
You know, that green
I was
stuff
thinking
you put
we
on
were
food?
talking about politics.
No, this is much more controversial than politics. It's cilantro.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Of course, this is kind of a joke, obviously, but it is something that could be, I guess, controversial because with controversial things, people have very different and very strong opinions. And I think cilantro falls into that category. Although I don't think it would lead to a war, but certainly maybe some stress in the kitchen or the dining room. I, for example, don't mind it. My wife hates it. So when it comes to making food, I always try to avoid recipes with cilantro, and occasionally I see the recipe and, ooh, that looks good. And then, oh, I'll never make that. It's got cilantro.
A great shame. I don't think I've ever met somebody who hates cilantro, but there appears to be a good reason for this. So let's get started with today's article.
Reading. Love or hate cilantro? It's all in your genes. Many people love cilantro's fresh taste, but for others, cilantro tastes horrible. This isn't just about some people being picky eaters. Our feelings about cilantro come from our DNA itself. About 20% of the world's population says that cilantro tastes awful. People usually describe it as tasting like stink bugs or soap. These people have a gene that lets them recognize chemicals called aldehydes. These are found in cilantro, but also in soap and stink bugs. Interestingly, this gene occurs more frequently in European people. Many Europeans in the past wrote complaints about cilantro's bug-like smell. In fact, coriander, another name for cilantro, comes from the Greek chorus, meaning bug. This could explain why cilantro doesn't show up very often in European or other Western food. If you have this gene, though, there's good news. You can learn to like cilantro. Crushing the leaves makes the aldehydes break down and stop smelling bad. You can also coach your brain to connect cilantro with positive food experiences. You won't know until you try it.
Okay, so our article starts with a sentence that I certainly agree with. Many people love cilantro's fresh taste. Okay, definitely. Cilantro has a very fresh, very bright taste, doesn't it? It tastes like a clean salad, you know? It doesn't have any strong flavors. I really like that about cilantro. Why do people hate it?
I don't know. I agree with you. It tastes kind of fresh and healthy. It tastes healthy.
It does.
But maybe we were born in a certain way, but other people, they would totally disagree. It says, but for others, like my wife, but for others, cilantro tastes horrible. Yeah, they can't stand the taste of it. I've heard people compare it to eating soap or something like that. I don't eat soap very often, but I can certainly imagine what soap tastes like. And I think most people, maybe not with cilantro, but with soap, they would agree it tastes horrible. When we say something is horrible, this adjective just means it's very, very bad. We have a lot of words that mean the same kind of thing in English, of course. Terrible, awful, something you really, really don't like. Instead of saying, I really, really don't like that, you can just say, that is horrible. For example, what is that horrible noise coming from Ashton's bedroom? Oh, he's practicing the violin.
Oh, that can sound very, very bad. That can sound horrible.
Especially if it's your first few months of practicing. Yeah.
Yes. Yes, we could say you sound like a dying cat.
Ooh, I've heard that one before. I've never heard a dying cat, but I imagine that's pretty horrible too.
It would sound like a violin, I assume.
Yeah.
Anyway, let's go on to the next sentence. This isn't just about some people being picky eaters, right? A picky eater, that is someone who only likes certain foods. So they probably don't like trying new food, and they will often complain that things taste bad, or they look weird, or, they don't want to try them. So my sister, for example, is a very picky eater.
Uh-oh.
And it can be very difficult to find a restaurant when we're traveling. When we went to Tainan together, when she visited Taiwan, we couldn't find anywhere to eat because she didn't want to try any of the food. She is a very picky eater. We could also say she is a fussy eater, because fussy is just basically like picky.
Interesting. I am definitely not a picky eater. I will try almost anything once, and I've certainly eaten some weird food. So I'm curious about picky eaters. Was there any sort of Taiwanese food that your sister finally said, I like that? Or was it all kind of too weird for her, coming from the UK?
The thing she liked the most was actually, it wasn't Taiwanese, it was Japanese. We went to one of those Buddhist vegetarian restaurants.
Oh, interesting.
And she really liked the tofu, the rice wrapped in tofu, like a kind of sushi. She really liked that, and she wanted it every day.
That's interesting.
So she's a very picky eater, but some of her choices are interesting.
Yeah, okay. And it's actually some picky eaters might not like tofu because it kind of, feels weird in your mouth. I had a friend come from Canada who was a picky eater. She wouldn't eat anything. Finally, we did also find Japanese barbecue, like the sticks with the little bits of meat. It's not that strange, but finally, after taking her all through the night market, I did find something that she liked. And I don't know if we tried cilantro, but I imagine she probably wouldn't have liked that. But here we, in the article, learn that it might not just be because the person is a picky eater or they've never tried a lot of Taiwanese food or, they're just not brave. It might not be that simple. It says our feelings about cilantro come from our DNA itself. So for, complaining that someone doesn't like cilantro might make as much sense as complaining that they have blue eyes or something like that. It's nothing that they can control. It's just the way their body was built at a very basic level, at the DNA level. So you were born not liking cilantro, basically.
Yeah, basically.
Interesting.
So the article says about 20%, that's 1/5, about 20% of the world's population says that cilantro tastes awful.
That's incredible.
Wow,
10% of the world is left-handed. And 20% of the world doesn't like cilantro.
So that must be billions of people hate cilantro around the world. Okay.
That's quite incredible.
Don't want to have dinner with those people.
That's just the way they were born because of their DNA. It says people usually describe it as tasting like stink bugs or soap. I'm assuming this is people who think it tastes awful, not people, I like it, it tastes like soap. No, of course, you don't like the taste of soap. So people who don't like it, people who are born with this different DNA, they would describe cilantro as tasting like stink bugs or soap. We said it tasted quite nice or fresh or healthy. They said it tastes terrible, like stink bugs. These are bugs that I'm not too familiar with, but basically they make a terrible smell, probably to protect themselves from being eaten by other bugs. So if you're near them, if you touch them, certainly if you step on one, they would just make this terrible sort of garbage-like smell. Just not a nice smell, not a perfumey, flowery smell, a nasty smell. So that wouldn't be good. And of course, soap is very, very bitter. Soap is not something that tastes good. No one would like to eat soap-flavored candies, for example.
No, I imagine they would hate that.
All right, so let's get to some of the science of this then.
So the article says, these people have a gene that lets them recognize chemicals called aldehydes. Oh, okay, so it sounds like they're spotting something that we're missing, and that's because of a gene that they have. Now, a gene is basically a small piece of your DNA. DNA is what Mike was just explaining. that influences what your body will look like or how you will grow up and other things about your physical appearance and sometimes mental condition as well. It's also what makes you look like your parents, brothers and sisters. So it's no coincidence that you and your mum look alike. You and your mum look alike because you share some of the same genes. So they have a gene that helps them recognize a chemical in cilantro. And when we recognize a smell, a sound, or an image, then we notice it. For example, if Mike came home after work and recognized the smell of cookies baking, then that means he entered the house and smelt the smell of cookies in the oven. He noticed they were being made. So to go back to the article, people with certain genes can recognize or notice the unusual chemicals in cilantro. They can taste these chemicals. Other people, like me and like Mike, can't, and that's why cilantro tastes good to us. So another way we can use recognize is to talk about recognizing someone in a crowd, noticing someone. And in that case, we're talking about seeing them and knowing who they are. So if I recognize Mike, then I see him on the street and I think, oh, that's Mike. I've met him before. If I don't recognize him, then he's just another stranger to me. Okay, let's look at an example sentence for recognize. After he grew a big beard, many of Eddie's old friends didn't recognize him.
Very, very interesting. All right, and we also have to talk about this word chemical. What is a chemical? Well, if we look in the dictionary, it's a substance produced by or used in a chemical process. Now, that doesn't mean much to us, but basically chemicals are things that we create sometimes naturally, sometimes artificially, and they're often made up of many of those elements that all things on the earth are made up of. So when we talk about chemicals, we often talk about hydrogen, oxygen, nitrogen, and combinations of those. If you're taking medicines, those are made of chemicals. All the food we eat is made up of chemicals and minerals. Some chemicals are very good for us. Some chemicals are very dangerous and can make us sick or even kill us. But almost all organic, natural things in the world and many things that we make in labs and, using science, they're made up of chemicals. Here's a basic combination of chemicals or elements that we know. Water is made up of two chemicals, hydrogen and oxygen, H2O. That's the chemical that is basically water. Mm-hmm. And we also have this word aldehyde. This is turning into a science class, isn't it?
It is. This is a very complicated word. You don't really need to remember this word.
Okay.
But it's basically a kind of chemical that's found in some natural spices and household things. So some other things that have aldehydes in them are cinnamon and vanilla.
Oh.
So I've heard of people not liking cinnamon before, but never vanilla. Vanilla is supposed to be something that everyone likes, right?
Yeah, it's true. I don't mind vanilla at all, but I guess there might be people out there who don't like it.
Maybe.
All right, so let's look at these aldehydes. It says these are found in cilantro. All right, well, that makes sense, but also in soap and stink bugs. So there could be a common thing about all of these three things that many people think is really horrible, is really terrible. They don't like it. And it's not necessarily just, I don't like it because I don't like it. It's just a choice. No, it could be because of these aldehydes and because of the DNA the person was born with. They just don't get along very well together. They don't like each other.
Exactly. Interestingly, the article says, this gene occurs more frequently in European people. Okay. That makes a lot of sense. I remember when I lived in Spain, a lot of people said they didn't like cilantro.
You don't find it used in a lot of Western cooking. It's used in more Eastern Asian cooking.
Exactly.
Interesting.
So that's might be why it occurs more frequently, or it might be because it occurs more frequently in European people. Now, frequently is an adverb that means often. So, for example, if you frequently go to school by bus, then you often go to school by bus. To look back at the article, it's saying that often people with the cilantro-hating gene are European. It's common for Europeans to have the gene and hate cilantro. So the adjective form of frequently is frequent, and we can talk about frequent causes, frequent accidents, and frequent surprises. Those are causes, accidents, and surprises that happen often. So it's the same kind of meaning. So what is the opposite of frequently while we're on it? Seldom. So when something seldom happens, it rarely happens or it almost never happens. So, for example, I seldom make it through the day without drinking a cup of coffee. I'm drinking one right now, actually.
Ah, so you frequently drink coffee.
I frequently drink coffee. So our example sentence is, Sydney is a salesperson, so she frequently takes the high-speed train to other cities in Taiwan.
Maybe like once or twice a week or something
Probably.
like that. Whereas most people might go once or twice a year. All right, then the article also says something kind of from the past. It says many Europeans in the past wrote complaints about cilantro's bug-like smell. So those early explorers, people like Marco Polo might have gone to China. Oh, I loved all the noodles I had, but that's cilantro. So this is not a recent thing that people have just discovered because they're eating more Asian food. No, for hundreds of years, people have sort of noticed this strange food and flavor that they have had when traveling around, and they also compared it to bugs or the smell of bugs.
Exactly. In fact, the article says coriander, another name for cilantro, comes from the Greek koris, meaning bug. Actually, in the UK, that's what we call cilantro a lot of the times. We normally call it coriander. And sometimes we call it cilantro, but normally in the UK, you'll see coriander to mean cilantro.
Oh, okay. I've also seen coriander used to describe the seeds and cilantro as the plant. So I'm not quite sure.
That might be it.
Some people do it that way too. But you're right. It does often have a different name in North America compared to the UK and Europe and stuff like that. And then, as we mentioned earlier, the fact that Europeans even long ago complained about the taste and smell, this could explain why cilantro doesn't show up very often in European or other Western food. Yeah, it doesn't show up. It doesn't appear. You don't find it in Western food. It's not a common thing to include in your Western recipes. I think it might also be hard to grow maybe in the colder climates of the West.
But anyways,
you're right. You don't see a lot of cilantro in like French and Italian cooking.
Exactly. So if you have this gene, though, there's good news. You can learn to like cilantro. Right. Okay. So maybe if you eat a little bit of it every so often.
That would be one way. And the article gives us another suggestion that I might try on my wife, but maybe I shouldn't tell her. Crushing the leaves makes the aldehydes break down and stop smelling bad. So maybe I could try that. I won't trick her, but I'll put it, be like, you put in coriander. I'll say, try it. It won't taste so strong. It won't smell so bad. I will crush the leaves. That means basically sort of break them apart. If it's something soft like a leaf, you can put it in your hand and close your fist around it. Some people often take their spices and herbs and kind of smack them, kind of clap your hands with the herb in between your hands to kind of let out some of the oils and the juice inside of the leaf. This will help to break down. When we break down in this way, we're not talking about, my car broke down. We're sort of talking about turning something into its other parts.
Exactly. So here we're talking about digesting the food, basically. We're saying that once we're not actually, we're talking about what happens to the aldehydes when you crush the leaves. So it makes them come apart. It makes them basically become something smaller, and therefore the taste starts to go away. But we can also talk about things breaking down in your stomach. When you eat food, it gets broken down inside your stomach when it goes into, when it gets absorbed into your blood. So let's move on to the next sentence. You can also coach your brain to connect cilantro with positive food experiences. That seems like a very good tip. I remember I started eating stinky tofu after someone tricked me and told me it was an egg omelette.
Oh, no.
And then I thought it tasted strange. I knew it was stinky tofu, but I wasn't expecting it to taste bad. So it didn't taste as bad. Anyway, we've got this word coach, which is really what I'm explaining here. When you coach someone or you coach something, you train them. So a coach basically means, as a noun, it means someone who manages a sports team, your coach in gym class. But here we're talking about what the coach does. We're talking about training people. So you're training your brain to connect cilantro with positive food experiences. Now, we're going to look at connect, but first let's quickly look at an example sentence for coach. When Isabel was a young tennis player, her dad coached her, right? He taught her how to play tennis.
Right, and we could, of course, say he was her coach, because we can use that both as a verb and a noun. And then we have this word connect. Yeah, try to connect eating cilantro with positive or good or happy food experiences. When you connect things, you join them together. You could do it in a real way in the world, like you connect the two ends of a necklace so it hangs around your neck, or trains or different parts of the engine and the cars, and they connect them together to make a train. But here we're also talking about connecting or joining things in your mind. A lot of people might connect watching Netflix with staying home on the weekend or something, right? It's not something you do all the time. Maybe you don't do it when you're on the bus or waiting for a train or something. But if you're at home, you say, yeah, when I'm at home, that's what I usually do. It's kind of there's a relationship there. There's some kind of link there. For example, the police used some fingerprints and other clues to connect the criminals to the bank robbery. They kind of joined these two different groups together by looking at the clues. All right, back to the article. It says, for those people who are a little afraid of cilantro, you won't know until you try it. Yeah, try some of these ways to break down the flavor of cilantro and, try it out. Don't say you won't like it until you try it.
Exactly. And that's actually going to be our grammar point. Today's grammar point is not until. Now, we use this grammar when we want to say that something was only achieved or can only be achieved once a certain condition is met. For example, you can't leave the classroom until the school bell rings. So in this example, you can't leave the classroom right now. You can't leave the classroom yet. However, when the school bell rings, you will be allowed to leave. And after that time, you can leave whenever you like. Here's another example. You can't eat the cookies until they have cooled. So to make this grammar structure, we need a subject, a negative verb, and until, and then a second subject and a second verb. The first subject and verb is the thing you can't do yet. So you can't leave the classroom or you can't eat the cookies. The second subject verb is the condition that needs to be fulfilled for you to be able to do those things. So one last example, you can't drive the car until you put gas in it. Okay, so driving the car, that's the thing you can't do now. And putting gas in it, that is what you need to do to be able to drive the car. So you can't drive the car until you put gas in it could also be said, when you put gas in the car, you can drive it. So that's basically how that grammar structure works. Okay, that's all the time we have for day 1 of this unit. Let's go on to our For You Chat question.
For You Chat.
Okay, so our chat question is all about foods that we dislike. Now, I guess we've decided that you and I both don't mind cilantro, so those aren't foods we dislike. But is there a food out there, Seb, that you would never want to try? Maybe you've tried it and you didn't like it and you won't try again, or maybe you've just seen it somewhere and you immediately thought, if I ever get the chance, I will not eat that.
Right. For your chat question is, which food do you dislike no matter what? Would you ever try to like it?
Try to like it.
Okay. So I guess stinky tofu is still one of them because I like certain kinds of stinky tofu. I like huangjin chou tofu. I think that one, the golden chou tofu, I think that one is quite nice. Yeah, and the fried one is good, but I hate mala chou tofu.
Oh, that's the really stinky, wet kind,
The wet, stinky kind of chou tofu. I've tried it, and that's why I know that I don't like it. I always try things first before I decide I don't like them or that I decide that I like them. But, I've tried it. I tried it again a year later. I still didn't like it. So I think there's not really going to be much change happening there.
Okay.
I don't think I need to like stinky tofu.
No, it's not that important, but it's good that you tried it at least.
Yes,
so there you go. I think for me, quickly, I'll just say durian, liu lian.
Oh, that's another one, actually.
I've never really liked it, but I'm still, I'll try anything. If someone still says, this is the best liu lian, the best durian from the best farmer, then I would still try it. But
Actually,
As of now, I'm not a fan.
You know, my fussy sister, the sister that wouldn't eat anything in Taiwan,
She liked
she
it?
likes durian.
No.
Yeah, she really likes durian.
You have
the
to
first time
find me
she
where
tried
you
it,
bought that durian from.
Yeah, it was a night market somewhere, but I guess that's exactly what this article is saying. You never know if you will like something until you try it.
Exactly.
And on that note, I think it's time for us to say goodbye.
It is, but we'll have more about durian tomorrow, I believe.
Not
sorry,
durian, but cilantro. We will be talking more about
Durian's
cilantro.
next month, hopefully.
Next month is durian.
All right, we'll
Okay.
be back with more cilantro tomorrow.
Bye-bye.
Take care.
Vocabulary Review.
Horrible. The man lost both his legs in the horrible scooter accident. Recognize. I recognize this author's name, but haven't read any of her books yet. Chemical. You need to wear gloves when handling these chemicals. Frequently. My trip to London wasn't much fun because it rained frequently while I was there. Coach. Daniel coached his son on how to play baseball from a young age. Connect. I connect this song with the happy times I shared with my friends in high school.
智慧小补帖
Picky eater. Stink bug. Gene. Aldehyde. Crush.
以上节目是由活用空中美语制作，活用空中美语杂志，请洽询全国各大书店。如欲索取试听教材，请来电02-2364-4000 02-2364-4000，或上网查询，网址是 www.english4u.net www.english4u.net